Have you ever considered how different your life would be if your day simply ended the moment the sun went down? Imagine that as soon as twilight hits, your ability to read, to work, to study, or even to move safely outside your home vanishes. For most of us, electricity is like the air we breathe. We do not think about it until it is gone. We flip a switch and expect light. We plug in our phones and expect a connection to the global map of ideas. But for 700 million people on our planet, this is not a reality. When darkness falls, they are forced to rely on expensive and dangerous fuels like kerosene just to see the person sitting across from them. This is not just a story about a lack of technology. It is a story about a massive failure in how we value human potential. It is one of the biggest gaps in our global system, and yet, it is a problem we actually know how to solve. To understand why this gap still exists, we have to look at the context of how we view risk and progress. For over a century, the expansion of electricity has been the engine of modern life. We often assume that progress eventually reaches everyone, like a slow-moving wave. But that wave has stalled for nearly a tenth of the human population. We see a world divided between those who are connected to the future and those who are literally left in the dark. In the modern age, we talk about artificial intelligence and global digital classrooms, but these promises are hollow for a child who cannot even turn on a lamp to do their homework. The divide is not just about convenience. It is about agency. It is about having the power to choose how you spend your time and how you build your future. The surface concept we often hear is that bringing energy to remote or poor areas is simply too expensive or too risky. Many people look at maps of places like Malawi or Chad and see low electrification rates, and they conclude that these markets are just not ready. They see poverty and they see risk. This is the logic of a traditional investor who is looking for a quick and guaranteed return. From this perspective, a family living on a few dollars a day does not look like a customer. They look like a liability. We focus on the statistics of what people lack rather than the reality of what they could achieve if they had the right tools. But there is a hidden assumption beneath this view that we must challenge. We assume that financial risk should be the final word in every decision. We have been trained to believe that if something is financially risky, it is not worth doing. This mindset creates a false wall between doing business and doing what is right. We treat the climate crisis as two separate problems, reducing emissions and helping people adapt to the changes already happening. But for the most person living in a vulnerable area, these are the same thing. Electricity is not just a way to reduce carbon by replacing kerosene lamps. It is the very tool people need to survive a changing climate. It is the power for irrigation during a drought, the cooling for medicine during a heat wave, and the communication network during a flood. When we ignore these people because of financial risk, we are making a moral choice, even if we pretend it is just a business one. If we look at the structural pattern of how change actually happens, we see that it follows a ladder. Once a family gets that first spark of solar energy, they do not go back to the dark. They start with a single light, then they move to a radio, then a phone charger, and eventually to solar-powered tools that help them earn a living, like irrigation pumps or electric motorbikes. This is a pattern of upward mobility that benefits everyone. When millions of people move up this ladder, it creates entirely new markets. It creates jobs. It prevents millions of tons of carbon from entering the atmosphere. The pattern shows us that the energy transition is not just about changing how rich countries power their factories. It is about choosing what kind of energy will fuel the next billion people. The population of Africa is expected to grow significantly by the middle of this century. If we do not provide a clean energy path now, the entire planet will feel the consequences later. We need to reframe our perspective on what capital is for. Right now, global finance is not scarce, but it is scared. Trillions of dollars are moving into energy transitions in wealthy nations, but only a tiny fraction of that reaches the off-grid solar sector in the hardest-to-reach places. We need a new kind of moral imagination. We need to stop asking only for the highest financial return and start asking what problem we are trying to solve. This requires a different way of structuring money. We can use philanthropy as a starting point because it is patient and can go into difficult places first. This early money acts as a shield, lowering the risk for bigger banks and investors to join in later. It is about creating a bridge of capital that stretches from the heart of a donor to the door of a commercial bank. Risk is not just a number on a spreadsheet. It is a moral concept. The real risk is not losing a bit of money. The real risk is leaving millions of people behind and watching instability and migration rise because we refuse to act. Applying this to our daily lives starts with how we think about our own resources and our own sense of connection. We often feel overwhelmed by global problems, thinking they are too big for us to touch. But the lesson here is that systems can be redesigned when we change our priorities. It starts by recognizing the dignity in every human being, regardless of their bank account or their location. In your own life, you can ask where you are letting fear or risk stop you from doing something that has deep value. We all have some form of capital, whether it is our money, our time, our voice, or our skills. Are we using those things to stay comfortable, or are we using them to solve problems? When we align our resources with our values, we create a sense of freedom for ourselves and others. We move away from a world of scarcity and toward a world of shared possibility. It is about realizing that we are not separate from the struggles of someone halfway around the world. Their ability to thrive is linked to our own. This is a moment in history that asks us to be brave. Bringing light to everyone on Earth is an immensely difficult task, but it is completely within our reach if we decide it matters. We have the technology. We have the money. What we need is the courage to rethink our systems. Imagine 100 years from now. What will the people of that time say about us? Will they see a generation that looked at the dark and looked away, or will they see a generation that finally brought light and dignity to every corner of the globe? We have the chance to be the ones who finally finished the work that started with the invention of the light bulb. We can be the generation that learned to control our technology and our capital instead of being controlled by them. We can choose to act out of a sense of shared humanity rather than a fear of loss. When we provide energy to the most vulnerable, we are not just giving them a product. We are acknowledging their right to participate in the future. We are lighting the whole sky by making sure no one is left in the shadows. If you had the power to change someone's entire future by simply rethinking how you measure the risk of helping them, what would be the first step you would take today?